Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Geoffrey Noodle Legs here today with another Noodle film review. Today we're looking at one of my favourites, a George Romero film. We're looking at Second Sight's new release of Martin. Now this came out this week, I believe, and this is the collector's edition, which if you saw my late night horror show, I did a little sort of unboxing of it. So this film is a 1970s film made by George Romero, and it's about Martin, and the film sort of starts off on a train. We're on a train journey, and we see a young girl on the train, and we see Martin on the train. Now the young girl is sort of like quite a jolly soul. You can see her sort of she's sort of having a joke with the conductor on the train who's doing the ticket check, and she's got her own sort of compartment. Now this is based in America, and it's like a really sort of big sort of train, and during the night time we see sort of Martin sort of skulking about, and he's kind of like creeping past all these people that are in the sort of sleeping compartments, trying to get past, because he has noticed this young woman. So he makes his way over towards her her sort of compartment. She's got her own with a little bathroom, and he's making his way over there. He goes to the bathroom first, and he's sort of you see him open up his bag, and in there he's got like a sort of set of syringes and needles, and he starts to fill one up with some kind of anesthetic by the looks of it, to help put someone to sleep. So he sort of fills that up, and then he sort of goes to the room where the girl is staying, and he's sort of like listening in, making sure he's got the right sort of room, and then he sees that the door's locked, so he starts picking the lock, and he sort of picks the lock, and then he starts getting flashbacks in black and white to like people shouting Martin, and the girl in the room who's like sort of egging him over to her, and it's like he's sort of like hallucinating and sort of fantasizing about something else. And so he then eventually breaks into the girl's room, but she's not there. So he has a good look around, and she's not there at all, and he's sort of like, he's a bit bewildered because he saw her go in there, and he knows she's in there, but she's not there. Anyway, then he hears a noise coming from the next door room, which is like the bathroom attached to it. So he hides behind the door, and the door opens to the bathroom, and the sort of young girl's standing in the doorway, and he's now sort of hiding behind the door, and she doesn't know he's there. So she walks into the room, obviously not knowing that Martin is in there, and then she sort of turns around and sees him, and then Martin makes a dash for her and sort of injects her with the needle. So he's injected her with this sort of anaesthetic, which obviously is going to take a little while to work, and then there's a bit of a violent scene as she's sort of struggling, because obviously she doesn't know who he is or what's going on, and she knows she's been injected with something. So there's a bit of a struggle going on, and he's telling her to calm down and all this. You know, you're just going to go to sleep, you're just going to go to sleep, and all this sort of thing. This struggle goes on for 2 or 3 minutes, and eventually she sort of like becomes sleepy and sort of like succumbs to the anaesthetic, and then he undresses her and undresses himself. He has no intention to rape her or anything like that, but he just wants to feel, I think, the skin on skin sort of thing. He's got some issues, as our Martin, and then they're on the bed sort of thing, and he sort of gets out a razor blade, and he cuts her wrist down here and oozes with blood, and he starts then drinking the blood from her wrist, and it's sort of like all pouring over his body and stuff like that. Obviously, because she's under this anaesthetic, she's got no sort of sense of feeling that what's going on. Anyway, so she dies on the train, and Martin sort of goes in afterwards, cleaning up his mess behind him, sort of like finding the syringe, clearing that away. He puts razor blades around the room and tablets to make it look like she's sort of committed suicide, and he leaves the room. So he this is a vampire film, by the way. So he believes he's this vampire. So he's been drinking his blood, and then the train stops the next day, and at the station where Martin needs to get off. I think it's Pittsburgh, can't remember. But there's lots of people trying to get on and off, and he doesn't want them to discover the woman's body in her room. And so he eventually gets off the train, and then he meets an old man who looks like Colonel Sanders. Apparently this is his uncle. He's going off to stay with his uncle. So him and his uncle make their way from the station. There's some really beautiful photography here of like some architecture. And they make their way through the town to a different little station. Obviously this station is where like they get the sort of like local services. So they're at this station waiting for another train. Martin and his uncle. And then they get on the train and they head off to this sort of like little suburb where they're going to. And eventually they arrive there, and they arrive at this house as well. And the house belongs to his uncle. So Martin's going to stay with his uncle for some reason. So they then go into the house. Once sort of like Martin's said very few words at this point. And they go into the house, and the uncle sort of shows him around and tells him that you can't go in this room, you can't go in that room, you cannot talk to my daughter, and all this sort of things. And then there's like a little flashback, because his uncle starts calling him Nosferatu. So then we get another sort of like flashbacks and that happening. His uncle believes that he is a vampire and that he is Nosferatu, and that he's come here to stay with his uncle because his uncle's going to help him. So then there's a little chase in the house where Martin chases his uncle to his uncle's room, and then breaks into his room and says to him, look, there's no magic. All this stuff, these crosses, these garlic that he's got on the doors and that, it's all magic. It's not going to work on nothing like this, you know. So he sort of like tells him this is just all magic and it's not true. So sorry. And this stuff doesn't work. Anyway, so his uncle's a bit in shock. And Martin leaves his room and goes back to his room. And then we meet the young lady, the sister, his uncle's daughter, and she sort of like introduces herself to him. And the uncle wants Martin to come and work in his shop with him. So he decides to give him sort of like a little job of a delivery sort of boy, delivering whatever that is that they're delivering, I think meat and things like that, to different houses. The uncle's told him that he can go out and about if he wants, but he's not to kill anyone in the town. There's lots of arguments going on between the daughter and the father, because the daughter doesn't believe at all that Martin's got this. He's a vampire, Nosferatu. He's just a lad that's got a lot of mental health issues. So all this sort of stuff goes on. And then you see Martin going around the town, meeting different sort of clients of like from the shop. He's doing his deliveries, and there's a couple of young women that he sort of like that he sort of likes and shows an interest in, and one particular really seems to like him too. And she's asked him if she can do some odd jobs, and he said, yeah, no problem, because she gave him a lift back from her house after he'd done his deliveries, and they were talking, and he says he can do odd jobs for her. Anyway, he sort of notices another woman that he sort of like has taken a shine to at her house, and he very bizarrely goes and sort of like knocks on her door, saying that, with a sign saying, "Please help me, I'm deaf." And her husband gives him some money, and he goes away. And then the husband goes, and Martin breaks into the house, and he breaks into the room where the woman is, because obviously he's planning to do what he's saying that he did to the woman on the train. But there's a guy in there with her, so this woman's having an affair. So Martin jumps across the bed and sort of stabs the young lad, no, the man in there, with an injection, because he's got his needle again. And he runs off at the house, and they can't find him in the house. So he's then refilled 2 more syringes, and he goes back and he syringes the woman, he finds her, syringes her, and he finds the bloke and syringes him again. His plan was to kill the woman, but because that bloke's there, he's decided not to, and he takes the bloke outside and he kills the bloke and drinks his blood. So it's kind of like, and that's how the sort of film goes. So I'm not going to tell you anymore, because I want you to discover this film by yourself, because it's a very special film. And it's a film that holds dear to my heart, because I fell in love with this film when I first saw it in the 80s. I absolutely thought the film was wonderful. It was extremely bizarre, but wonderful. And it was a really different take on the vampire sort of genre. So, is Martin a vampire? Or is he just a boy with problems who fantasizes of being a vampire? We don't know, because his uncle believes he's a vampire. Others don't. So, and why do we keep getting these flashbacks to the past? It's all sort of like up in the air, so you need to watch it to find out how it pans out. It's probably George Romero's most interesting work, and it's my favourite George Romero film, and it's one of my favourite. I've got something on me, haven't I? It's one of my videos, isn't it? Always the same, and it's one of my favourite sort of vampire films. So what do I think of Martin? It's incredible. It's really held up really well over the years. It's fantastic. This is a 1970s film, and it's still amazing. Absolutely cool. It's still captivating. It's still bizarre and strange, but still awesome. The actor that plays Martin's got a real sort of screen presence, and he's so cool and really, really good. But the pluses of this one, the transfers is really nice. It's kept the grain. It looks 1970s and it's cool. Yeah, it has got the borders on the other side, but it is in 4K. So to get the 4K sort of dimension, they've had to keep it in its original sort of ratio. But it looks amazing. It's acted really well. It's got a great cast. Tom Savini stars in it as the boyfriend of his uncle's daughter. You've got George Romero playing the priest in the film, and it's a really well constructed cast. It's a serial killer film, really, but with sort of vampirish sort of tendencies, because you're left guessing: is he a vampire, or is he just someone who fantasizes being a vampire and kills people and drinks their blood? So you need to watch that and find out. It's a really cool story, really well acted. The minus is it can be a bit bizarre and a bit crazy for people to follow at some points, but you've got to stick at it. And it's one of those films that really does require a few viewings. Luckily, this edition has 4 audio commentaries on it. So, and please, if you do go out and buy this, watch the feature-length documentary. It's fantastic, really, really cool. It is a great film. It's got its own fan base. You know, some people absolutely love it, and some people don't understand it. Mark Almond absolutely loves the film. His band Soft Cell actually done a song called Martin back in 1982 on their album The Art of Falling Apart, and it is based on this film. Really, really cool. So if you get a chance to listen to that, it's a 10-minute long song, but it's certainly worth. If you've enjoyed the movie, check out that song by Soft Cell. It's actually called Martin. So that's really cool. So it's got its own fan base, and it is incredible. It's a very different look on the sort of vampire film, and it's really shot so well. I just love it. I'm going to score this film an awesome watch and give it a 9 out of 10. I'm not going to score it a 10 out of 10, although in my heart it probably is a 10 out of 10 film. I'm not going to score it that because it's not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not a huge vampire fan. Like I said to you, to me, it's one of the weakest genres in the horror sort of genre. I've never been a huge vampire fan. I love there's I can probably say about 6 or 7 vampire films that I absolutely adore. I'm not a fan of The Lost Boys. I'm not a fan of Interview with a Vampire. Any of these sort of films. It's just not me. It's not my cup of tea. But I know a lot of people do. But when something special happens, like Martin, then that's a different story. I mean, I love Fright Night, and I love Let the Right One In and the Dracula films, and Nosferatu, of course, the old silent movie. There is some amazing vampire films, but then there's some poor ones. But that's like every sort of genre, really. So there we go. Martin, 9 out of 10. Any of you guys seen it? Let me know down below what you thought of it. I absolutely loved the film. It's still as fantastic as it was when I saw it back in the 80s. It's amazing, and it's so cool that Second Sight have picked this up. This film deserves this kind of edition because it's a special, really special film for the special horror fans. Guys, check out some horror channels for me till the next video. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Andrew's Grumpy Horror House, Pizzle, I'm the Ice Lord, Sarah of Horror, and of course Cat Watchers Horror. All amazing channels, guys. Till next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.